Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Justin Young. He is Josh Tech. Welcome to Monday Commitment Catch-Up Time right here on the Fast Break on hoopscene.com. We go through it every single Monday. We kind of recap the prior week on who made decisions where. And quite frankly, this is our biggest one yet today. We're going to go through 12 commitments from the last week that happened. Most of them happened over the weekend. It was a busy, busy weekend. As we kind of previewed last week on Fast Break Friday, it's here. We kind of anticipated it. And Josh, Tech, let me just be very clear. This is a Taylor Swift free zone this week on the Fast Break Friday. I feel like everywhere you go, not Fast Break Friday, on Commitment Catch Up, I feel like everywhere you go on anything sports related, it's about T-Swizz. We're going to keep it T-Swizz free, even though maybe it doesn't count since I mentioned it. But nevertheless, let's go into it, man. Let's dive into it. What do you say?
Man, I'm ready to go. This definitely feels like the first big massive splash in the recruiting world.
Yeah, it sure does. It sure, and it was. I mean, we've got the ACC was impacted pretty significantly. I think some schools in the Texas area, the central part of the country were impacted a lot. There's some big non-Power 5 conference commitments out here in the West. I think were important. Of course, as usual, some guys from the great state of Georgia that we're going to dive into here. And so let's go ahead and start at the very top. And we mentioned it before we even got started, man. The University of Miami is not pulling punches right now in the class of 2024. They added another significant player to the recruiting class in Jalil Bethea. And I got to ask, I mean, where does this put Miami right now? This has got to give them a team that can contend for a top 5 spot, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, right now, I mean, we on our side, we don't have the system to where it ranks teams and programs based on who commits. But I imagine Miami currently has to be a top 5 school in the 2024 recruiting class right now after getting Austin Swartz, Jalil Bethea. And they've had a whole bunch of guys come through campus, and they have more guys coming up as well. So they're using that Final Four and elite back-to-back Elite Eight Final Four momentum to really capitalize on the recruiting trail.
Austin Swartz and Jalil Bethea, I mean, that's going to be one of the best backcourts if they play 2 years together, right? Because I think both of those guys are good enough to consider leaving early. That's going to be one of the best backcourts in not just the ACC but all of college basketball.
They're going to put points up on the board. Jalil Bethea was a 40.8% shooter on the EYBL circuit, and we know Austin Swartz can fill it up. Those guys are going to be able to shoot the ball. They're both going to be able to handle either primary or secondary creation duties with the ball in their hands. Like, that's going to be a potent backcourt. Miami had their most recent success based on having incredible guards. So this is just, furthering that, and it's going to continue that moving forward.
Is that NBA Jam behind you, by the way?
So right directly behind me, I'm not on my home turf. Directly behind me is NFL Blitz, and yes, NBA Jam is also behind me.
Oh, is it really? Okay, well, I was going to say, like the
that's
Miami
Blitz, that's Jam.
Oh, I love it. Fantastic. Well, you could put that Miami backcourt in that game and probably be really successful, honestly, with Austin
sure.
and Jalil.
If I had these two guys in this game right here, I would be just pulling from half court. Just like push the button, hit the button, shoot.
I love it. I didn't even realize that what was going on until I was like, oh, wait a second. This is perfect. This is perfect. Well, Jalil Bethea, I mean, I feel like both of those guys can go be your alpha on any sort of night, but Jalil Bethea, there's a little extra something that I like about him that I do think that Miami poses an interesting position for him if you're thinking about the NBA as well. Like, could he be a guy that really fast tracks his professional career by picking Miami? I like that commitment a lot. I feel like if Jay Wright was still at Villanova, I feel like Jay Wright would have been the coach that wanted Jalil Bethea and got that done back in the day.
Yeah.
And now I feel like, we're seeing a really similar type of basketball flavor going on with this current roster build for the University of Miami. So interesting to keep a note on that as well. We talked about this player last week with a huge visit tour that he was on, but Con Knippel's off the board, headed to Duke and going to be playing for John Shire and the Blue Devils. Man, this one, anytime you get a player that goes to Duke, it's a significant one just because of Duke's position in college basketball. But, I mean, it kind of makes a lot of sense with him picking the Blue Devils. We talked about a lot of other programs. I thought Virginia was going to be a team to beat, but Duke came over the top and won this battle. Did that surprise you at all?
Not really. I mean, like we said last week, if you go to Duke, that's always going to be – if Duke's in the mix, it's always not going to be surprising if they win, right? Duke usually gets their guy whether it's Krzyzewski, whether it's Shire, Duke usually, gets who they want. And in this case, they beat Tony Bennett in Virginia. They beat Shaka Smart in Marquette. They beat Greg Gard in Wisconsin to get Con Knippel, one of the best scorers in the class, one of the best shooters in the class, very savvy player, knows how to play the game. And this is Duke. This might be Duke's best commitment of the class so far as positional rank or player ranking. We have him in the top 15, and I believe that's Duke's highest rated commit right now. There's plenty more guys left on the board that they're very in on. So there could be this could be the first domino to fall in a really high level class for them.
We've seen some really good scorers and shooters go play for Duke in that same position. I do wonder if John Shire pulls out any of his old game tape to show to Con Knippel for the type of guard.
I would not be surprised at all if he was like, hey, why don't you check this game out?
A lot of good ones. I mean, Con Knippel is such a great shooter that, I mean, you've got to – I mean, I would hope that he also pulls out some old Reddick stuff. Man, there's so many other guys I'm thinking of that you could probably
like Con doesn't have like the typical Duke villain vibe, but I feel like people are just going to adapt to him that way after he drills a couple threes, right? Like right in your favorite team's face.
It's totally fair. Totally fair. Let's hope he's more John Shire than he is maybe like Grayson Allen or something like that. I feel like
I kind of get that vibe. Like he is going to be more of that kind of like, all right, like I respect you for what you can do kind of deal.
Let's pivot down to within the ACC, talking about Cole Kerouac's headed to Georgia Tech. Local guy, went up to Brewster Academy for a post-grad year up there in New Hampshire, coming back home to go play on the flats. And again, Georgia Tech, we talked about it before of them kind of building a pipeline maybe at the overtime elite, but they're also getting some guys, some local guys, high academic guys. This could be a sneaky one too in time where Georgia Tech, when they're good, they always have a good guy that's in the middle that stays for 4 years, that kind of stays the course. Yeah. Cole Kerouac going up to Brewster to play up in that league, to play for Jason Smith, I think is a major upgrade for his skill set. A lot of college coaches I talked to over the summer like, Jay, I think this guy's actually pretty good. A lot of good whispers about him. So it'll be interesting to see what his trajectory looks like there at Georgia Tech. What were your thoughts of him? You saw him a lot from kind of, early on in his high school career to where he is now. Like, how much better has he gotten over the course of time?
I think he's gotten significantly better. As far as his general skill set, like he's very skilled forward. He has to bring the tough mindset. I think where the college is going to benefit him the most is when it comes to physical, like the physicality of the game. Like he's going to develop more physically, and he's going to be a multi-year guy at Georgia Tech. But I think he's going to be one of those guys that's, we look back on this in a couple of years and be like, man, that was a really good sneaky pickup in the first recruiting class for Amari Stoudemire Damon Stoudemire and all those, their new staff over there.
I would love to see Amari Stoudemire coaching.
Honestly. I know. As soon as I said that, I was like, wait, wrong one.
Ironically, when I first got into this game was when Amari Stoudemire was a high school, and he played with the Atlanta Celtics actually at Georgia Tech at the old Atlanta Basketball Classic. And I remember walking into the gym, and it was him. It was like Dwight Howard, Josh Smith, and like Jonathan Hargett, like all these dudes. And I just remember watching Amari. I was like, yeah, I think I want to do this. I think this is a career path that really seems interesting to me. Is covering these guys. So ironically enough, Amari Stoudemire, I saw him there at O'Keefe Gym, one of the best sleeper gyms. Now it's all volleyball, but back in the day, it was a great spot to watch some basketball. All right, let's move down the line a little bit. Let's talk about Missouri for a second. Actually, let's start there. We talked about Miami building a great class. Now Missouri's putting together a hell of a class as well. They're not pulling any punches. They got a really good one from the state of Arkansas, and in their Boateng is off the board, committed to the Tigers. Listen, anytime there's a guy from the state of Arkansas, I got to think the Razorbacks are going to be a real player here. They dipped in there, and they got a really good one out of Arkansas to come over to Missouri. What do you like about this commitment for the Tigers?
I think this is another long-term play. Boateng is one of those guys who's good at a little bit of everything right now. But when you look at his positional size and his physicality and his athleticism, he's going to be one of those guys that can keep getting better in college. And when he adjusted that game and when he kind of develops that kind of skill set that he's great at, that he's elite at, that's going to be when he really takes off. I think that could be defense too. I think, in time, he's going to be a really great defender. And, that program that, Dennis Gates, the C.Y. Young, those guys really emphasize defense. We've saw it at Florida State. We've seen it in the past. I think Boateng's going to be a guy that fits into their system really well.
Boateng reminds me a lot of a guy that we saw a lot coming up, and that was Shawnee Brown that went on to Wake Forest and then the University of Michigan. Really, really good player out of Florida. Boateng reminds me a lot of that. A really good college player. So I'm with you in the long term. One of my favorite guys in the class, and we talked about on Fast Break Friday, a commitment that I think maybe got, with so many commitments that happened over the weekend, this one maybe didn't get as much attention as it should. But Larry Johnson to Creighton, I think, is significant. There's a reason why Creighton's so good in the Big East. There's a reason why Greg McDermott's such a great coach. He gets great players. He gets guys and he converts them into pros. And I think Larry Johnson, quite frankly, I know a lot of NBA guys are paying close attention to this one. They really like this one a lot. And I think this is a sneaky good one. Really significant, actually, when you look at the class of 2024 in totality. I think this is one of the most significant commitments of the 2024 class, to be quite frank, because I think what Larry Johnson is now is just a shadow of what he could be in time.
Yeah.
And I think if Greg McDermott has proven himself, he can really develop players into high level, high functioning guys at college and beyond. And I think this is a significant win for the Blue Jays. Do you think listen, the Big East is it feels like we're getting back to like old Big East. Now it's weird to think that Creighton's a Big East team, but do you feel like Larry Johnson could be an all Big East type of guy?
Yeah, in time. He's another one of those guys that I could see taking time to adjust to the college game. And then when he does, and when he's a sophomore or a junior or whatever, he is one of those guys that can be an all Big East kind of guy, one of those guys that really gains a lot of national attention. Right now, athletic, long, defensive. I mean, he can do a lot of things well on the floor. I think Doug McDermott, Creighton, they're going to really develop him. And that's another program. There's a theme right now. It's another program that's developing sneaky good class. They got Jackson McAndrew, great shooter with size. They got Larry Johnson. It's going to be a defensive piece for them. This is going to be a really good class for them.
Yeah, there's some really fun classes that are being put together right now.
I like the shifting of college basketball. Like, we're not getting the same old in recruiting. This is like we're spending a lot of time talking about Miami, Georgia Tech, Creighton, Missouri. Like, it feels different. It feels like we're in a different era, and I kind of like it. I'm here for it.
Yeah, it certainly levels things out, doesn't it, when we get to March, where a lot of the old names that we talked about, again, like we talked about, like I feel like Jalil Bethea was a Villanova guy back in the day, right? Like
100%
the shift that's happening, and I think we can kind of keep it moving too. Like, there's three significant commitments I think that happen that we want to go through here. A couple are in the state of Texas, there's some Texas ties. And then Oklahoma State. Let's start with Robert Miller III, headed to LSU. Again, another one that kind of, with so many commitments happening, I feel like this one maybe didn't get quite as much shine as maybe it should have. What do you like about this commitment for the Tigers of LSU?
I think it's their first commitment of the season, and I mean they got the big man out of the way, skilled big man, tough, does all of that stuff. He's a legacy player. His dad played at LSU back in the day, played football at LSU back in the day. And he had visits to Texas and Alabama lined up, but he canceled those after visiting as part of one of our, campuses of the weekend recruiting trips. He loved his visit so much, and I guess the legacy had to do with that, and he just decided to commit to the Tigers, and I really like it for him.
I like it. TCU got a good one. Another in-state guy, Micah Robinson, good size, good positional size. TCU is a program that I think is – they always have a guy like him, right? Like, I always think about, like, with their lineup, that, man, you always kind of fear that they're a team that can go on the road and pick up a big road win. And they do that when they land guys like Micah Robinson. And I think with the state of Texas, as we see like Texas A&M and the SEC, we see Texas moving to the SEC as well. Now it's left is Baylor, Texas Tech, TCU, I think, can kind of reap the benefits. Houston's also been able to reap the benefits a little bit and landing some guys from the state of Texas. So another significant one, the Lone Star State, keeping a guy home with Micah Robinson playing for the Horned Frogs of TCU. Let's move up to Stillwater, go to Oklahoma State, a guy that, man, I feel like I've talked about him a lot. When he took the trip to Oklahoma State earlier, I thought Jeremiah Johnson was going to pop. Took about 3 weeks to make his decision. He's out here in Arizona now at PHH Prep. And, man, I really like this one a lot. An in-state kid from Tulsa, going to go play for Mike Boynton. We've seen good guards play for Mike Boynton over the years. And Jeremiah Johnson, when he was at Wasatch Academy the last couple of years, was one of my favorite guys out here in the West. Knows how to run a team, knows how to play with talent. And I think he's going to step right in and be a really good player in time. Another 4-year guy for Oklahoma State, but it's going to have a lot of pomp to him that I think will really kind of add some value to the Cowboys rotation in Oklahoma State. All right, let's talk about a couple guys from the state of Georgia. Let's start with Kamari Holmes headed to Wofford. You smiled really big right there when I brought that one up, so you must really like this one.
Yeah, I love him as a defender. Love his athleticism. Love what he can be able to, do in time. Wofford got Luke Flynn committed already, point guard from Marietta, Walton High School. So they're really recruiting Georgia well. What I love about this one is when I think about it, is Kamari Holmes started his high school career in North Carolina. He came down to Georgia. Now he's just landing right in the middle. I'm going to be right in the middle of both of them. I'm going to Wofford.
He's hitting all the stops on I-85 is what he's doing.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, you know what? I love North Carolina. I love Georgia. I'm going to sandwich right in the middle of them. Great pickup for the Terriers. I think this is going to be a really good one. They're recruiting Georgia really well right now. I think that backcourt is going to be really good for them in time.
Yeah, when Wofford's good, they always recruit Georgia really hard. Kamari Holmes is off the board for them. A non-Division I commitment that we want to talk about is William Jobe headed to Rollins College. We've seen him before quite a bit. Played our preview camps. We've seen him a lot during the Scholastic season. What kind of player do you think William Jobe could be down at Rollins College?
Man, I think that this could be a steal for them. He had early on in his career, he had taken visits to Indiana. He's had a lot of schools like Wofford watching him during live period events consistently. I know a lot of those programs still like him a lot. But I really love the decision for him to go to a D2 and go to where he can really thrive early on and kind of get a lot of experience under his belt. I think he could be one of those guys that up transfers in time. I mean, I think that he's 6'9" and he can shoot the ball. That's going to open up a lot of doors for you. I think Rollins got a steal here. I think this is really interesting and I really like it.
Yeah. Rollins is a program that comes to a lot of our events, so we see them quite often. They identified talent really, really well. I think that's one of their best strengths as a staff.
Yeah.
So it's good to see that. Let's wrap things up here on commitment catch up here on the fast break. Two commitments here in the West that I really like a lot. I'm going to start with Darnell Slater that's headed to Colorado State. Slater, I saw him in April of this year. This is a guy that I think is going to be a significant player for Nico Medved at Colorado State. Can really score, can really shoot. A big-time scorer, big-time shooter, plays at Roosevelt High School, has played every single powerhouse there is in the state of California. And Colorado State, listen, Nico Medved can really coach, and we've seen that. Yeah. We've seen him have success at his stops as a head coach along the way. And I think that Darnell Slater is one of those guys that it doesn't get a lot of run in big national conversations, but this is a significant one because I think he's going to be part of a team because I think he'll stay the course. I think he's going to be part of a team that probably gets a good upset win because he's going to hit a big shot and because he can score the basketball. And quite frankly, I think he's a player that can score 1,500 points in college. And really, if you're a Colorado State basketball fan, you got to like this one quite a bit because I like this one quite a bit. I think this is a really, really important one. I thought he was one of the most slept on guys in the West. I think he was great at Section 7 and really liked that as well. And then another program that is really quietly building a nice recruiting class is Utah State. No stranger to great success in college basketball. I'm a little biased. My daughter's a freshman at Utah State, so I'm a little excited about this one as well. But Terrence Hill out of Portland, Oregon, plays at AZ Compass Prep. Really great shooter. Is going to be headed to Utah State, and he's going to be joining Case Wynot, one of the best sleepers there is out of the state of Idaho. Really great shooter. So they're adding two great shooters to their rotation, and really excited to see what the Aggies put together as they kind of build a new foundation for what they want to be out here in the West. So two big ones. Yeah. That we've got going on. Listen, as commitments happen, we're going to have you covered always here on Commitment Catch Up every Monday, but we're going to start to put together some stuff. We're going to start identifying some of these great classes now that we've gotten about, what is it, September? We're about a month and a half away from signing period. And so we're going to start working on that stuff. And we'll start to bring that up here more often on Commitment Catch Up on some of these classes that we really, really like. Any commitments, anybody that we need to kind of, who's next, man? I feel like we're kind of moving through it pretty well.
Man, I don't know. I just started looking at it right before we hopped on this. Like, who's visiting this weekend? Where are people visiting? So that's kind of this is getting the gears turning. Now that we've got a lot of these big names off the board, I'm looking at who's next, what positions need to be filled at certain spots. One that I'm really looking at is Kenai Roots is visiting Miami. At this point, if you're visiting Miami, I think you might just commit. Now that they got the guard shored up, they can get a nice forward in Kenai Roots. That's gonna be a hell of a class if they can get that done.
Yeah. Of the guys that we talked about today, who was your favorite commitment and why?
Probably Jalil Bethea, because I think that's going to be an exciting backcourt to watch. That's going to be really entertaining to watch. What about you?
I'm a Larry Johnson to Creighton. Yeah, I think that's a
Yeah,
significant.
I like that one a lot too. I like that one a lot too because they've got the potent scorer in Jackson McAndrew, the potent shooter. And this, I think Larry Johnson is going to add a different dimension to that team. Yeah, I really like that one as well.
Yeah, there are some good ones. When it comes to fit, we saw some really, really, I think, good decisions done on both sides, whether it's the player or whether it's the coaching staff.
Yeah,
So
and
good.
really, like William Job is like I love that one because it's just like it was unique, right? You don't see a guy with that much kind of, not I don't want to say hype, but like a guy that's that highly regarded as far as coaches and all of that elect to go Division two, and I think it's really smart. I just think that going to a place where you can make the biggest impact right away, and then maybe if you develop a nice resume, you can transfer up in time. I think that's just such a smart, unique move.
Yeah, I had a conversation with a parent over the weekend. I was at an event in California, and he was asking like, "Oh, well, what should we look for?" I'm like, "Listen, where can your son go play? Like it's so
Yeah.
much better of an experience where you're on the floor, you're actually seeing action, and you're not just clapping on the sidelines during games for 30 times a season. Like, go where you can go play. To me, that's one of those. We did it in our fantasy draft a while back.
Yeah.
Like, what would we look for personally? And to me, it was like getting on the floor and playing was a real significant piece to it all. So. Good stuff. We're going to be back at it again. Fast Break Friday on a Thursday. We're going to have you covered for the weekend's visitors. As Josh mentioned, another busy weekend ahead. We'll have you covered. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you're watching this on Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it, make sure you hit the repost or retweet or reshare or send it to your grandma or whatever. I don't know. Just move it around the internet for us if you can. Help us out. We appreciate you watching. We'll see you again on Thursday with Fast Break Friday. It's confusing, I know, whatever. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope we see you back sooner than later. Thanks, Josh. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.